We would like to thank everyone who helped last night setting up all the paintings, the chairs, tables, flowers, microphone, video, everything. Thank you very much for all that help. Now we'd like to again thank you for being here, coming from near and far to celebrate the life of Elsa Irene Harvey. She was born on the 24th of March, 1948, and I know Beverly will be doing the math right now. That was 75 years and 1 day ago. And Elsa passed away on October 31st, 2022. She was born to Ingolf and Irene Eliasson in the mining town of Soljama in Norway, northern Norway. And life north of the Arctic Circle in Soljama was very hard, very tough life up there. Long, cold, dark winters, bitter cold, and bleak landscape, as the trees were all decimated by a large smelter and the poisonous gases that came from there. Elsa's parents felt, we can't live here much longer, it's not doing any good for us, so they figured, okay, we better move. So they saved the money, and they borrowed money from friends and relatives, and made the move to right on time. Exactly. And they made the move to Canada. And that was in 1954. They moved to Thunder Bay, Ontario, and they stayed with Elsa's aunt. Well, they were pretty good for 3 years, so, and as life would have it, there were strikes and there was a shortage of work, and that caused the family to relocate to Wells, BC. And there were 2 gold mines there, and things went good for 3 or 4 years. But as mining towns would have it, the Wells mine closed down in 1961. Then the family moved to Mount Cheer, just 4 or 5 miles up the road here, and Elsa, Roy, Ellen, and Ingolf moved there. Again, 3 or 4 years later, they moved down here to Britannia Beach. And this is where Elsa met the love of her life, Charlie. Well, they went to Howesound High School, and all of us, or many of us, went to high school there, and we went through the Red Bridge and over Stony Creek, etc. And we had a good time there, we think, as best we can remember. And then Elsa, upon graduation, she went to Simon Fraser University, where she earned her teaching degree. Then she started her career in teaching in Powell River. And then she moved to Blue River, just north of Kamloops. And then settled down in Brackendale, 27 years in the Brackendale Elementary School. It's a long time. Must have liked it. Because it's a lot of fun dealing with little children, that's for sure. Ask any grandparent. Then Charlie and Elsa were married in 1970. In 1972, they built their family home in Garibaldi Highlands. Elsa gave birth to Eric in 1973 and Monica in 1976. Elsa put her art and her career on hold and focused on her children. She decided to be a stay-at-home mom, at least until the kids are old enough to go to school. Elsa was involved in the executives of Girl Guides, figure skating, and ballet. She had the kids in swimming, softball, soccer, baseball, hockey, and skiing. Busy girl. And she took an art and sewing class at Capilano College. Upon her return to the educational field, Elsa chose the library over the classroom. She felt the library allowed her to use her art skills and help special needs students. She felt that while very challenging, it was also more rewarding. Elsa was a kind and gentle lady. She had a great sense of humor, a culinary whiz, fantastic artist, and enjoyed gardening, sewing, and loved traveling. She was known as the Martha Stewart of the family. Now, I've been very lucky to travel to all the Scandinavian countries, and I guess the Faroe Islands, Iceland, and Greenland. And Norwegians, in particular, have a very great reverence for trolls. So Charlie, for Elsa, made a troll. And his name is Olaf. Olaf. So Olaf usually is at the house in Squamish, and his eyes should be where they are, and he watches and guards the house. And Olaf is watching you. He wanted to come here today and see what was going on. And now I'd like to ask my wife, Linda Harvey, to come and tell us her memories of Elsa.
Hello, Linda. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. As we were talking about Elsa's beautiful artwork, she had also great penmanship. And this was a card she wrote to me 3 years ago on my birthday, and I treasure it always. And we had a lot of similar comments about things, and I have a history of going long, so I brought this to remind me. Good morning, everyone. My name is Linda Harvey, as you know, Elsa and Charlie's sister-in-law, and Eric and Monica's aunt. My friendship with Elsa began in 1958, 64 years ago, in Wells, BC. Wow, that's 6 decades ago. I'm that old. It's a pleasure to be that old. We were only 8 and 9 years old back then, and our dads worked together in the gold mines in Wells. We never struck it rich, but our moms were good neighbor, good friends. Well, before TV, Wi-Fi, Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram, we learned to entertain ourselves outside. Elsa and I often rode our bicycles together to school on some pretty dusty, frost-heaving roads, uphill both ways. With delicious homemade lunches by our mums in our metal lunch buckets, we made quite a racket as we raced to school. Elsa's pretty hair, I remember, even then blowing in the wind behind us. We often recalled the fun we had playing in a nearby pond on the raft we built together. We often thought we were Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer. Female version. Another time we had a close call playing in a placer mine creek when, ignoring the warning whistle that was just heard, Elsa became stranded in the middle of the raging creek. Well, I frantically ran home to get my brother Bruce, Granny. He arrived in time and safely carried her across the creek to safety. And he became our hometown hero that day. Elsa never forgot that, and she mentions it here. We always found time for many more adventures in Wells, too many to mention today, but I have a copy of my original speech, version 8, what will give you details. We would always enjoy each other's birthday parties with our neighborhood and school friends. Elsa was a constant playmate of mine throughout my childhood. We had lots of memorable adventures together as families, moving around mining towns all over BC. A few years apart, we reunited again, riding the school bus together at age 16 and 17 years old. Elsa reassured me things would be great at my new school, Howson Secondary, and soon she'd introduce me to her friends, who's here today, Beverly Thomas. Wave your hand, Dad. She always listens to me. Pat Vickers, Kathy Carrico, and Heidi Teese. They made me feel very welcome despite being in grade 11. We sat every lunch hour, always at the same cafeteria table at Howson Secondary. It was reserved just for us. And nobody else dare sit at that table. We even had a trip to the big city of Vancouver by bus for a day of graduation dress shopping and lunch and everyone looked so lovely. When graduation day arrived in May, I was there to see Elsa wearing her beautiful turquoise brocade dress and shawl made by her mom, Ellen, a very accomplished seamstress. Elsa and I remember looked so beautiful with her red hair and an updo on the top of her head. And in September of '66, Elsa, as Brian said, left for SFU to get her teaching degree. I started grade 12. Without all of them there, I missed them a lot. However, Elsa came home on weekends quite often, and we would meet up and talk and walk for hours, which would come to no surprise. And we walked around the roads of Britannia, and then we went up the 500 stairs. Well, it felt like 500. And at times we stopped for coffee at Ellen's, Elsa's mom. Then Elsa would walk me back home to Minetti Bay. En route, she'd share stories of her university life and her crazy part-time job as a dispatcher for Coquitlam taxis. We had a lot of laughs. Elsa and Bev Thomas McDonald, as many other local teens did, had worked at the original Chatterbox, which is no longer there, but somewhere over there, menagerie, for the Bjorkmans. Elsa and Bev have often told me they learned an awful lot working at the Chatterbox. Perhaps that's the reason they both became very good at creating meals in their own kitchens. After graduation, I would start working at Britannia's mine office. Elsa would soon join me, working for the summer as the receptionist and switchboard operator. We were now together again. This time as Anaconda employees, like our dads. In the meantime, next door in the, I think it was called the Geochem lab, something like that, there was a young fellow working there named Charlie Harvey. For one reason and not any other, he came into the main office often. It was a well-known fact that even then, Elsa and Charlie were an item. We're just about there, folks. I get my pages mixed up here. Elsa and Charlie got married. Willis Smith, who's here today, was her maid of honor. And Willis also, last name is Horsford. We were asked to assist Elsa with her wedding. It turned out to be a great family and friends get-together. The bridesmaid dresses were made by my sister Jeanette, and the flower girl dress, whereas Elsa's mom made her beautiful, elegant wedding dress. Charlie was very happy that day. He had finally snagged the prettiest redhead in town to be his wife. My mom was their wedding singer, and she sang, "I love you truly," and he does. So, after some years, this guy, Brian's younger, more handsome brother, told me to say that. And I would finally get married on Valentine's Day, which our son said was very corny, but he never forgets. Elsa and I were no longer just adventurous friends, but now family as sisters-in-law. And Elsa's kids, where are we here, Brian? Elsa said as kids, we planned to marry brothers. I thought she meant the Everly brothers. At least they could sing and had money. We would have had more adventures becoming parents with the births of their children, Eric and Monica. And our children, Aaron, Lauren, Karen, who for one reason or another couldn't make it today, but one is on the way and consistently late, but she's coming. Elsa loaned me her traditional fancy old-style perambulator for our babies, and I was forever grateful as it provided some of the best contented baby moments. I've always admired Elsa for the tender, loving care she gave her mom at Hilltop, bringing her fresh coffee and almost daily, doing her laundry with care, and visiting and calling her practically every day in Hilltop, where Ellen lived almost 101. From now on, when our two families gather together with Charlie, Eric, Monica, and Adam, and Roy's, Elsa's younger brother, we will always, of course, really miss Elsa's lovely presence. We are grateful for all the memories we do have of her, and we hope they will bring us comfort in the days ahead. Her beautiful paintings have left a very special part of her with us. I'm wrapping it up. And always admire and remember her by, and please take note of them. Charlie's very proud of Elsa's artistic talents, as we all are. However, I'm pretty sure they're not for sale yet, even though they are Elsa Harvey originals. In closing, I like to share a quote from the library, a library book, near and dear to Elsa, a tribute, an artist she was as well, which seemed fitting. If there ever comes a day when we can't be together, keep me in your heart, I'll stay there forever. By A.A. Milne, author of Winnie the Pooh. Thanks for all the adventures we had together, Elsa. You'll never be forgotten. And thank you for your time. I'm sorry I went over time.
Just the right time.
Thank you so much.
Wow, 64 years of friendship, that's incredible. Only in 4 or 5 pages. It could have been a lot longer, but now, let's see. Will Smith was the maid of honor at their wedding in 1970, so we asked Willa to come up now and tell us her memories of Elsa. Willa Smith and Horsfall. Thank you.
As you said, I'm Ella Smith, now Horsfall. I knew Elsa up at Mount Share. We played for a few years and then moved to Britannia. And kind of lost touch with her as I was a little older. But it was until we were late teens that Charlie and my boyfriend Joel and Elsa and I, we had a great time, and that's where I really reconnected with Elsa. I always admired her for the way she dressed, the way she was groomed, very much a lady at about 17, 18 years. The one thing, Linda had mentioned so much about her that it's hard for me to add to it. But I can remember with a fun time we had with Charlie and Elsa was the guys took us to the Railway Club. And we were still underage at the time, but they brought us in and sat us at the back of the club where we could have our glass of wine or our rum and coke or whatever. But it's kind of a highlight because we thought we were really grown up then. But I was a attendant at their wedding, which was very special. Unfortunately, I didn't realize Elsa was such an amazing artist. And we just kind of grew apart. I got on with my life and ended up moving, so we're in Elsa now, but I still admire Elsa for her put-togetherness, her picnics, and the friendship we had at that period of time. So, thank you, Brian, and nice to see the ex-Britannia people here as well.
I also remember that club in Vancouver. We were a little underage, however. And now, the Jorgensen family and the Eliason family have been friends since 1915. So I'd like to ask Janet Jorgensen to come up and say a few words. And this is Elsa's cousin. Thank you, Janet.
Good morning, everyone. It's great to see so many people here for such a special person as my cousin Elsa. This has been a very, very tough year for our family. And we have so many memories in Britannia Beach. It's probably my favorite place. And it will always be. So, I'll go back a few years because it does go back to when the Eliason family moved from Wells to Mount Shear. And of course, Elsa is actually my dad's cousin, so she's my second cousin. But they're the only sort of Georgies and Eliasons, the Norwegian family, out in the West. Everybody else stayed in Thunder Bay. Can you imagine? We haven't figured that one out yet. But anyway, they seem to like it there, and we've certainly made many trips to see the family, and it's been wonderful. But when the Eliasons moved to Mount Shear, of course, then we were going to visit them there. And it was all fine going along the highway until we turned up this dirt road heading way up there. And I just happened to be on the outside of the car. There were 4 children in the back seat, and we're all trying to behave. Like that, and Dad driving, so we really behaved when we saw what was down there on that drive. And that's probably one of the biggest fear things that I learned to get over, was driving on a road this big and looking down that cliff. So you learn to really behave yourself in the car. So that was wonderful, and we would go up to Aunt Ellen's and Uncle Ingolf's, and we would have a great time. The meals were always spectacular. Elsa was always helping Tanta, and we became very good friends. As Elsa grew up and they moved down to Britannia Beach, I was also part of the family, and I was so privileged to be invited to Elsa's graduation, and I got to go with Roy. So we got to stay out really late, and we had a big party, and we had so much fun, didn't we, Roy, dancing? It was the best time. And Elsa was a meticulous seamstress, so it really helped and encouraged me as well to enjoy that, because both of our grandmothers and our mothers were great seamstresses. So we would always make our own clothes, and we always talked about all of these things. But our family had so many fun things that we did. And I'm going to tell you a really cute little funny story that my sister might have a heart attack. But we went on a picnic to Alice Lake one time, and this is when Jill was about 4 and I would be about 9, and we had this fantastic day, and we had all this food, and all the kids were there. And then as we were leaving, everybody jumped in different cars, and we drove back to Britannia Beach, and Tanta said, well, now we can have the ice cream. So she's getting all the ice cream out for everybody, and we had just gotten back, and so all the kids were excited, eating all the ice cream. And Tanta said, where's Jill? And my dad said, well, you brought her with you. And she said, no, she went with you. And the horror on the faces. And Elsa and I were sitting there in the living room. We didn't know where to look, because we knew we couldn't find her real quickly. She was at Alice Lake. So, anyways, in those days, there were no cell phones. My dad immediately ran out to the car. He's driving to Alice Lake. And I said to Elsa, we better go too. So we ran out, I jumped in, I was shotgun, Elsa was in the back seat, and Dad proceeded to drive about 120 miles an hour, at least, up the hill on the way to Alice Lake. At which time, we saw police cars coming the other way with lights flashing, and they flipped around and started coming after us. And I said, Dad, you better pull over. And he says, no, I've got to get Jill first. I'm not going over anywhere. And so we're really flying. And he kept going and going until finally, I think he realized, gee, maybe they do want to tell me something. Maybe not that I'm speeding. And he pulled over, And we were so grateful because a lovely family had taken Jill. They saw this little toad-head girl walking around the parking lot, wondering, and said, you know, where are your parents? And she didn't know, she was too little. And they took her to the Squamish police station, and that's where I got my second ice cream, because the people had bought her an ice cream cone, and when we went to get her, she was crying so hard, I just grabbed it like this, and she didn't care. I'm sorry, Julie. So all of these things led to us being, you know, together as a family so many times. My daughter moved here to Britannia Beach. She actually ended up renting the very house that Tanta and Elsa and Roy lived in, without anyone knowing. We talk about coincidences and things that happen that are serendipitous, but it really boils down to people being genuine and authentic and real, doesn't it? And that's who Elsa was. She was just one of those amazing people that, like her beautiful book there, if you see the picture, that is like a duck, calm on the outside, but pedaling like crazy beneath the water, because she was always doing things for other people. So she reminds me of a beautiful poem by Ralph Waldo Emerson: to laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a better place, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition. To know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is to have succeeded. Goodbye, my dear Elsa. I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, an old family friend and a work colleague is Faye Pickering, Shay. And she please come up now and say a few words. And also last night, we had a delicious tray of lasagna prepared by Faye. It was delicious. Thank you very much, Faye. It was good. Recipe after, yes. Faye.
Well, thank you. It is an honor to be asked to speak today about my friend Elsa. It is very fitting to have this venue for Elsa's celebration of life, although I think Elsa would have liked a little heat. Britannia Beach was always near and dear to Elsa's heart. The Pickering, Eliason, and Harvey families go back a very long way. I was going to stay, and some would say to the Ark, but I've heard some other people today, so it's not that far. So, during Elsa's high school years, she rode a bus from Mount Share to Squamish every morning, eventually graduating from House End Secondary. To those of us who can remember the old highway, this must have been a long and harrowing experience at best. I've known Elsa and Charlie's family, as I said, for a long time. My father was also a miner. We lived in Britannia Beach in the 1960s. Several of my brothers were very close friends with Roy, Elsa's brother, and Charlie and his brother Brian. As a child, I can recall Elsa, then a teenager, this beautiful girl with long, gorgeous hair. And even then, she had a striking sense of style, and no one ever forgot Elsa once they had met her. After graduating from high school, and it's already been said, she went to Simon Fraser University and earned a teaching degree. And she taught in Blue River. And then she returned and married Charlie and started a family. And in 1986, Elsa joined the Bracken Elementary staff as a library/teaching assistant. She remained there for 27 years. And in 1990, I joined the staff, and throughout the years, I've had the pleasure of working with Elsa with many of our special needs children. I saw firsthand the amazing work Elsa was able to do with often very difficult children. When someone was having a particularly bad day, I would often have them sit with Elsa, and very quickly tears and frustration would become giggles and laughter. Elsa was a listener, a creative thinker, and she approached each situation with compassion and a good dose of humor. Long before any educational gurus came up with the importance of connecting with children, Elsa had it down pat. Many of my students clamored to work with Mrs. Harvey, which sometimes led me to wonder, were they having too good a time? It is great to see Elsa's artwork displayed here today. When Elsa first began working with me, I asked her if she would help me with a bulletin board. I had envisioned a few cut-out letters, some kids' artwork, a few stick men, my personal specialty, and a store-bought border. But what Elsa created was nothing less than a masterpiece. I recall saying to her, well, this is great, but we're going to have to take it down in a few weeks. And it's so beautiful. And Elsa said, well, that's no problem. We'll just add a few snowflakes in the winter, and then we'll take those down, and then in the spring, we'll add some flowers. Schools can be very unpredictable workplaces. The kids are lively, the parents are lively, the staff is lively, the administration is lively. You just never know where your day is going. Elsa had a great sense of humor, as any of her colleagues and others can attest. In our conversations over the years, which we refer to as our studies in human behavior, because that was much better than saying we were gossiping, it was apparent that Elsa was able to see the world not in black and white, but in all colors of the rainbow. She could bring a unique perspective to any issue. Truth be told, we laughed a lot. We laughed with people, sometimes about people, and often about ourselves. Elsa was an outstanding daughter, sister, wife, mother, and grandmother. She was fiercely proud of each and every one of them. After Elsa retired, we always planned to spend more time together. But I truly regret that we missed a lot of opportunities. Elsa was an individual with her head in the clouds, but her feet planted firmly on the ground. She taught me that life is never black and white, that things are not always what they seem, and that laughter is great medicine. I will remember her forever, and I, along with you, will miss her dearly. Thank you.
And now we have another work colleague, a nice speaker, and it's Terry Warsaw. Terry, please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Terry Borslav, and I'm a retired teacher from School District House on, or Sea to Sky now. And it's my pleasure to share with you a few stories about Elsa. When I think about Elsa, many words come to mind. But Elsa was an elegant lady who always smiled, and was an amazingly gifted artist. I first met Elsa at the old Bracadell Elementary School. I was TOC for the district. I was the rental for the day, or as Elsa would say about all newbies, whether they were male or female, the sweet young thing, meaning you were wet behind the ears, little experience in the field, but had lots of enthusiasm. I had the luck to be called in that day for Ellen Grant, the then teacher librarian. I met Elsa in the hallway. Apparently she'd been waiting for me. She introduced herself, and she escorted me to the library, and she said she was a library teacher aide, and she laid out the plan and outlined the expectations for the day. She explained that she would be in and out. She had other responsibilities in the school to fulfill, but not to hesitate to ask if I needed help. I was impressed by her kindness, her friendliness, and her professionalism. She had a way of taking you under her wing and leading you and teaching you the ropes. And little did I know then that she would become a part of my life as a colleague, a friend and mentor. We would share many coffees and lunches at the Bean or Tim Hortons. Whenever I would be out and about in town, Elsa and I would connect on the street, say hello, exchange conversation about our families, and we'd go on our way. Well, after many years in this district, I found my final 100% teaching contract was at the new Rockadell Elementary School. I found Elsa in the library, working alongside Mary and Kelly, and together they were the dynamic duo. I remember thinking how great a team they were. Wow. Developing a book exchange system called the Lone Ranger. Well, this was just a piece of paper on an easel. It had a picture of the Lone Ranger on the front of it, and on the back you would record your library number, and then the books, the book codes. And bing bang boom, the books were yours to have for as long as you needed them. And Elsa would come in and put the codes into the computer later. No more need of pulling and adding book cards to the card catalog. Oh, smart. I also noticed the bulletin boards were beautiful. The artwork was amazing. Displays announcing new books, themes, or occasions like Thanksgiving, Remembrance Day, Christmas, Valentine's, Easter, all created by a very artistic Elsa. Well, it was in that library that I really got to know her. We shared a lot in common. We both had teaching certificates from Simon Fraser University. We both liked kids, coffee, and talking. Elsa had been raised in Britannia, and I had a connection there too. My mom's aunt and uncle, Geordie and Sis Scott, lived in Britannia because Uncle Geordie worked in the mine, and my mom would come up in the summer and stay with them for a visit. I asked Elsa one time, "Did you know of them?" She said, "Yes, of course, they had been her neighbors." So we talked about the upper town site and the open tram that carried you up the hill to Mount Shira and life in Britannia Beach. What a small world, I thought. Elsa was an early in-the-door employee like me. We'd wave, call out as I go by to my class. Before first bell, we get together, usually in the library, sometimes in my room or in the staff room. Together we talk about our families and life at school, share lots and lots of laughs. Elsa had a great sense of humor. We laughed long and we laughed hard. Elsa had a big heart. She often worked with students who acted out with poor behavior in class. She, like I, felt that these kids needed extra special care and above all, lots of love. She called them the top cookies. She could be seen chatting or having a walkabout with these kids. Her compassion for them showed. The tough cookies always responded positively to Mrs. Harvey's care. Part of Elsa's workday included library supervision on inclement weather days. The library was closed at recess, but it would be open at lunch to students who didn't want to go out because they were poorly dressed for the weather. Elsa would be on her own with up to 85 kids in that library. This was very, very impressive, and she didn't flinch. She loved the challenge. She cultivated and cared for the kids just like she worked in her garden. And by the time I had lunch and was returning to my room, I'd see that there were more kids in the room. I'm like, wow, how did she do that? Well, it was because they'd come to the back door and she'd feel sorry for them. She'd open the door and she'd let them in because they were soaking wet or they were cold, and she let them in. Elsa was kind and fair. She was not a pushover. She had rules. You may come in and you may draw, you may read. After all, this is a library, but you must sit and talk in a soft whisper voice. She offered coloring sheets, drawing paper, color pencils, and crayons. Kids respected Mrs. Harvey because they knew that she cared about them. She was an excellent cook and baker, sharing her treats with the staff whenever there was a need or a special occasion. Well, when she announced she was going to retire, I was the Hearts and Flowers lady at the time. I asked her what she might like as part of the gift from the staff, and she said she really liked that old card catalog and the table that it sat on. She would refurbish it and she would use it, had a use for it, and I thought, oh, how pretty. She'd been the main keeper of this piece of furniture for years, from the old school to the new, and it was no longer used and taking up a big space in the library. So knowing that, I went to see the then principal, Paul Rett, to make her request. And the conversation went something like this. Hi, Paul, you know that Elsa's retiring. Well, I've come to ask a favor on her behalf. She would really, really like to have that old card catalog on the table. Terry, we can't get that away. That's school board property. I said, why not? I said, it's not used anymore. The books are on the computer and they're backed up within the system. And that ancient piece of equipment is going to end up in the dump anyway. as a taxpayer, and you too, I vote we give it to Elsa. So I felt so passionate about that Elsa was to have it, I raised my voice and said, Paul, Elsa's getting that, and that's that. I was shocked that I never did that, things like that. Well, I didn't hear anything for a few weeks, and I thought, darn it, she's not going to get what she wants. Well, and then we had an assembly. And 3 young men came in carrying these very heavy card trays because they still had books and cards in them. And they presented them to Mrs. Harvey. She was thrilled. I was relieved because I thought I was still plotting as to how I was going to get it out of the library. But Paul had come through after all. Wanted to go on and on about Elsa. Working with her, she was just a wonderful person, a true blue friend. And I'll go over here to honor her today and celebrate her life. I want you all to know that this isn't the end. It's just until we meet again. Dear Elsa.
Was there enlightening about the school of Brackenhill? Now, P.J. Gale was a parent of 2 of Elsa's favorite library frequenters. They would come often to the school, and so we'd ask P.J. Gale plus 1 to come up. Elsa.
Hello, I'm PJ. I am the mom. John and Lucy Gill. And John was able to join us this weekend from university when he heard that it was Mrs. Harvey's memorial. So he wanted to say a few words first, and I think I'll share a few thoughts.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is John, and I was a long-time student of elementary of Mrs. Harvey. And I have to admit, at Brackenhill, I don't think I was one of the most outdoorsy children, which could be a challenge in our beautiful town of ours. But Mrs. Harvey never made that a challenge, and I was probably one of the kids when it was really raining hard. I would be knocking on the back door and asking if I could come into the library to read or draw. And I think I hold those years very, very near to my heart. She really, I think, made an impact on us, me and my sister, more than I think she could ever know. I was always really fascinated by different countries around the world. And for instance, I would know a friend that would go to the Philippines to visit family, and I would go, Mrs. Harvey, do you have any books on the Philippines? And then she would be like, yeah, go over to that aisle over there, and she would bring in books and articles for me to read that she thought that I might find interesting. And I think she created such a safe and welcoming environment in that library that was beyond necessary. And now I'm at university studying international relations, and I think that is to a great deal because she made that environment where I could actually really explore what I was interested in, and she was always there to support. And I want to mention my sister, who is away at school and couldn't be here today. She also, I think, really learned from Mrs. Harvey what the value of a librarian and a very good educator is. She's been teaching in Squamish for many years at a music school and even assisting in the high school as well. And at House Sound in the library, she ran a campaign and she was awarded a grant to bring more diverse books into the House Sound library, representative of different stories. And I think it made a big impact in the House Sound library, and again, we would have not learned the best from Mrs. Harvey. So it was, we'll miss her very, very much. And yeah, she really lives on with us.
I'm going to start this story by saying maybe a few of us remember when we used to write checks to pay our bills. So I was writing checks one night, paying our bills, and Colin and I were at the table, and I remember it. And Lucy said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm writing checks. Why are you writing checks? I'm paying our bills. Why are you paying our bills? Well, because if we want to have things, we have to pay for them. And these people work very hard, and they deserve to be paid, right? So when people work hard, they deserve to be paid. Papa and I work hard, we pay our bills, you have nice things. Okay, end of story. Lucy was in kindergarten, John was in grade 2 at Brackendale Elementary. John was a library monitor. Mrs. Harvey was in charge of the library monitors. You had to be in grade 2 to be a library monitor, not in kindergarten. Lucy was not very happy about this and went on about it, I think, for days, about the fact that John just wasn't fair. So she was going to figure out how to become a library monitor that year for sure. One day I get a phone call. It's Elsa, I'm at work. Hi, are you picking up the children today from school? It's Elsa. Nothing's wrong. I just wondered if you could pop in the library for a moment. I have something for you. I said, well, I am actually. She said, great, I'll see you then. I go into the library. Lucy's standing there with Mrs. Harvey, looking a little bit like, I don't know. Elsa has a plastic bag, a Ziploc, and in it is my orange checkbook, my bright orange checkbook. Well, Elsa said, Lucy, do you want to tell your mom what happened today, what you brought for me? She said, well, I paid Mrs. Harvey. She does a good job, and I want to be a library monitor. She gave Elsa a check with a lot of zeros. Mrs. Harvey, HRV. There you go. So, what I want to say is, as a parent, Colin and I, we always believed at being an engaged parents in our schools. We're blessed. We have 2 wonderful children. But we're even more blessed about the time that our children got to spend with those people all day long when we weren't there. And that's why they are there. It's not just from us. It's from people, many of you who are here today, who help shape individuals now. Also, would see my kids throughout the years and would light up and would call our house when she read something in the paper, or she knew John or Lucy had done something, and she was so proud. And I will always be very grateful for Elsa allowing there to be a special place for both of my children in her life and in her library. So thank you, Elsa. Thank you.
PJ and John, as I know. So Elsa was there for 27 years. Let's say you started school at 5 years old in class. 27 years later, how old would you be? Let's see. I can't do that. But those people are old now. And they remember Elsa, of course, very good job. Anyway, we'd like to ask Doug Grantham now to come up and say a few words. Douglas. Is Brackendale Elementary still going strong?
Yes.
I'd have to ask other people because I just recently retired from there, so ask my colleagues how things are going back here. Off the back here, all my love, thank you for the memories. It was easy for me to write the little insert that's put in here for me about Elsa. My memories have to do with her professional life, though I do remember one staff function at their home, which we had a lovely time, which I think involved the pool after people left. It was a good time. But I think the memories of just little snippets of conversations at recess or at lunchtime or passing by in the library, or when I got to know Elsa and I didn't get to know so much of her personal life. And I had a glimpse into her artistic world, and so when the suggestion I caught on as well in my classroom that, hey, I got somebody to do the bulletin board who's probably better than an average 10-year-old, was really good. And to be able to have more time to spend and find out more about her personal life is something that I'm kind of thinking about today, and maybe we can all think about today, that the people that you're surrounded with, that maybe your loved ones or people that you haven't seen in a while, asking the questions of what you'd like to know right now about them and not waiting to later when they're not here to answer the questions. For instance, I didn't know about the connection to Wells, because I spent time in the late 60s and early 70s there because my grandfather was a gold miner. And I just been back there recently, a couple of years ago, walking around the ghosts of my grandparents' lives. And hey, that'd been great to sit down with Elsa and talk about that. So it doesn't take too long to find the connection that you have with people. But it takes the time and the curiosity. I can imagine the endless hours and days that I could have spent with Elsa digging deeper into who she was, because I got to just know sort of the surface professional part of her. And for her family who got to know so much more of her. She's an incredibly special person. The last line that I wrote in there on the excerpt is that, my years at Brackendale were richer for having shared so many of them with Elsa, and I'm really appreciative of my time with her.
Thanks, Douglas. And I would ask Nelson Wickerburn to come up and read a poem.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's been quite a gathering, and I'm very honored to be a part of it. I actually went to Brackendale Elementary 3 times as a teacher, so it's very interesting to me. But it's been now nearly 20 years since I was there, so I've forgotten a little bit. But you'll bear with me. But it was, well, the old school, we don't want to talk about that, the floors were falling out. But the newer school was really a great place, and what made it great was the people that were there. And you've heard a number of things now, and there's a lot that maybe they could have added. Anyway, just a very short note. And I didn't always wear glasses then. To the living I am gone. This poem is called Remember Me. And it's almost like a staff meeting for Brackendale. To the living I am gone. To the sorrowful I will never return. To the angry I was cheated. But to the happy I am at peace. And to the faithful, I have never left. I cannot speak, but I can listen. I cannot be seen, but I can be heard. So as you stand upon a shore gazing at a beautiful sea, as you look upon a flower and admire its simplicity, remember me. Remember me in your heart, your thoughts, and your memories. Of the times we loved, the times we cried, the times we fought, the times we laughed, for if you always think of me, I will never have gone. Thank you for the opportunity to share this. Normally, after the staff meetings of Brackendale, there was another staff meeting held just a little further down the road near the corner of Garibaldi Way and I don't know if that's going to happen today.
Thank you very much. Just a footnote here. Our pianist today is Elsa and Charlie's son-in-law, Adam Sandell. Apparently, the price was very reasonable. That's the time to move on and Dinesh the old time County folks. Charlie wanted to hold Elsa's celebration of life here at the beach. This is where many of us grew up, worked, and shared so many great memories. Like Elsa and Charlie, some of you met your first loves, lifelong partners, and friends here. Charlie told me he felt like it was bringing Elsa back home. Charlie wanted to have Elsa put her paintings on the web and go into business, but her reply was, I painted for fun and it was a hobby. If I did it as anything else, it would be a job, and she didn't want to have a job. Anyway, please enjoy Elsa's art and the camel hair coat. Did it make it? It's right there. That's her last sewing job. That she had a big project with sewing. And as we say a final goodbye to Elsa, and though she will be sorely missed by the family and friends, let's remember her great smile, her big heart. Let's keep her memory close, never to be forgotten. I know at times like these, many of us do not feel like celebrating. However, this is the celebration of Elsa's life. If she were here, she would say, let's mingle, let's talk about old times. Let's say hello to old friends. Let's remember the good times we shared. So let's do that. Oh, we enjoy lunch. If you have not seen Elsa's art or signed the guest book, this would be a good time to do that. Also, again, thank you for coming from near and far, all of you.
But I'm getting used to it. And I guess, well, I'm going to say something a little different from you. We shared so much. And every once in a while, I would say to Elsa, and I call her Red, I said, Red, we have to have a serious conversation. And she said, okay, but after that, you're going to listen to me. Surviving 50 years of marriage next year. And what we talked about is, certainly after Elsa and I passed, I said, we have to get our lives together, we have to get organized, and we have to prepare, because eventually, you know, we're going to pass. And a lot of people don't like to talk about passing, and it was a tough decision for Elsa, but I said, look, you know, we have to do this. So one of the things we had to do was we had to revisit our wills, because we'd done them earlier, and after Elsa's mom's passed, and things happened, there needed to be some changes. And Elsa actually on her will specified, she said, and I think it was because after her mother passed, she realized how hard it was for her, and she didn't want to make it hard on her kids. And we had decided that I would pass first, okay? And the reason for that was Elsa's aunt, Esther in Norway, was 98, her mother was 100, she had relatives back east. All the women had really strong good genes. And the gene pool on my side of the family, and our parents, on the other side, was pretty poor, so we figured she was going to get an extra 20 years. And of course, it didn't work out that way. So, in her will, she had actually stated that when I go, I don't want any fuss made over me. I don't want to have anybody, go to any trouble. And she wasn't. She was that kind of a girl. So I thought, well, it looks like I went out and she lost, but I had to put this together for her. And I don't think there's a woman that probably deserves it more than she did. So thank you all for coming. And please, we really don't want to waste it, so I would encourage you to stay. There's tables set up. And, yeah, thanks again.
Remember, all that is black.
Now here you go again, you say you want your freedom. Well, who am I to keep you down? It's only right that you should play the way you feel it. But listen carefully to the sound of your loneliness, like a heartbeat drives you mad. In the stillness of remembering what you had and what you lost and what you had and what you lost. Oh, thunder only happens when it's raining. Players only love you when they're playing. Say women, they will come and they will go. When the rain washes you clean, you know. Now here I go again, I see the crystal vision. I keep my visions to myself. It's what you